Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's live stream. We are live doing a question time. Question time is our chance to answer your questions related to game dev, Unreal Engine, really whatever you really like. So all you got to do is put your question into the chat, and we try and grab as many questions as we can as we go through this evening. So we are live, so do put a message in the chat and say hello. And we're about to jump into Unreal here. And you want to start flooding in any questions you may have into the chat. I've tried making the chat highlight thing work in Streamlabs. It won't work. Remember, if you were here last week, we were trying to get the Streamlabs chat highlight. I don't know why. I can't seem to pin things. It's really annoying. I have no idea what to do. So, it is what it is. Yeah. Let me have a look at this. Actually, 1 second. I'll wait for everyone to come in. Hi, Lords. Hi, Anthems. Hi, Shife. Luke Goblin, how you doing? 1 second. What if I... Okay, we'll jump into the chat here. I've been Googling how to fix it. That's me. Oh, what's going on there? Okay. So, I'm going to try and pin something. Jesus. Allergies. Good fun. Yeah, I don't see how I can pin it. It won't. It don't work. Yeah, no. It's a strange thing. Like, they give you this tool and it don't work. Maybe it broke at some point. Anyway, let's answer some questions. If you're a Patreon member, yeah, is the question time queue jump where you can get your question answered. We haven't taken a look for a while, so let's take a look at some of the questions we've got in there. Patty is having some issues with the volumetrics, looking blotchy. Looks like again some 3D noise going through them or something. It was clean a few days ago, and I've been working on a lot of stuff since then. I don't know where it went wrong. Moved it all to a clean project, produced the same result. I'm in Unreal 5.5 and getting desperate. I can't say for certain because it could be any number of things. Not entirely. I can't. There's no way for me to really tell without going deep into it. So unfortunately, I can't help you with that one right now. Let's take a look at some of the questions in here. Lords, inventory system. When I try to add a slot manually and try to drag my item into that manual slot, it doesn't work and gives me an error. What if I could just do this actually? Hang on. Because I do want you guys to know what the hell I'm looking at. Hang on. If I just did... text. This is too awkward to try and make work. Damn it, I just want that highlight thing to really work. Never mind. So if you're dragging a slot in manually, I can't recall exactly in that series how I did it, but if you're dragging it in manually, chances are it hasn't been given and set up with the correct data and isn't part of that system. So where we done like a for each loop and went through all the different items or slots or for loop slots and added them in, you'll notice we're feeding it data and information on each slot creation. So it's probably that you haven't assigned that bit of data to it, I would imagine. Again, one of the hard things to see without actually getting my hands on it and all that stuff. How do you, this is from the Loot Goblin. Hey Ryan, how do you get a controller to switch between button on a widget? Switch between a button or widget that is in a switcher. Oh right, okay. Like a tab type thing. Yeah, I'll show you that. We'll just do a menu thing here. Okay, so we're gonna have a vertical box. And inside the vertical box, you're gonna have a horizontal box. And beneath that, you're gonna have a widget switcher. Okay. In the horizontal box, you'll probably have a number of buttons for each tab that you want to have. So, for example, we'll put a button in here and put some text in that button. And this will be like, I don't know, you'll have like inventory for whatever reason. Let me just change the appearance of this thing too. We'll change it to, something like that. Yeah, we'll duplicate that and change this one and say this one is a skill tree. Another one we'll do as equipment. And we'll do a couple more so you can easily see it. Map. And last one we'll do a settings. Okay, so you have these various buttons here. Okay. So I want these to be my tabs along the top here. So I'm going to select all my buttons first of all and tell them to fill the space up like so. And I'm going to go to the widget switcher beneath it and put in different widgets for each one. So just so we can easily see what's going on here, I'm going to add a border and fill that border up by changing the widget switcher to fill. And there's different colors for each one, as it's the easiest thing to change. So that'd be that one. 1, 2. How many do I need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's just change the colors. Okay, so widget switcher, we've got white, purple, reddy, pink, orange, and green. Okay, and these will correlate to these buttons up here. They will. I'm just going to give this a bit of padding as well, just so it stands out a little bit better. And I might, yeah, that'll do. Okay, so for each of these buttons, there's a couple ways you can do this. The first thing is to actually make this work just normally with a mouse click. That's the first job. So a quick way of doing this is on each button click, because these are inside a horizontal box, you can get the index that they are in. So you get, this is 83, so get parent widget on, and you want to get child index and plug in your button. And I'll give you this index here, and you can use this index for your widget switcher. So you can do set active widget index, and so it's there, and they should correlate. So the first button there will go to this white one, the second button skill tree would go to this purple one, and so on, because they are 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 to each other. So that's an easy way of doing that. So if you just set up for each button that in mind, I can just do, if we just actually make life a little bit easier, I'm going to collapse to function, set page, and delete that. Whoops. And just set that to button. So now I'll just do button, clicked, and just copy, paste this in. Button, clicked. All clicked. So I got 80. Yeah, there you go. That's all done. Okay, so that's an easy way of doing it with like clicking things, right? So just to show that working with a mouse and keyboard, first of all, we'll just do it in player controller. Yeah, we'll do the game mode actually. It don't matter. It don't matter. Not for this. We'll just do widget menu and just add to viewport. Okay. Done. Then I'm going to go to my menu and just tell it to change input mode temporarily while we do this. So on the construct, we're going to get player controller, set the input mode, whoops, to UI only, and set show mouse cursor. Okay, done. So just to see if this works, you click on here, there it is, and we can switch between the different tabs. Right, now to make this work for a controller, we can do, it depends on how you want to handle this, but most games that do this with a controller will do it with the shoulder buttons, for example. So you hit a shoulder button, it will just cycle through each one. I'm guessing that's what you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to do that, you need to set up your inputs for this. So you can do it with the enhanced input system. There's a caveat to that though, and I'll explain in a second. So if actually, let's just make a separate thing here and show you this. So input action, and we'll do IA UI previous page. We'll do this one, change page. Okay, and we'll make a mapping context for this UI. And in a mapping context for the UI, we'll add in our change page. And we're going to have in here left bumper, right bumper. Now for this, I want to change the value that's coming out of the left one because I want to make it a negative value. So I'm going to go to modifiers and hit the little plus button and hit negate. That's it. Close that. Then I want to go to back to the action here, and I want to change the value type from Boolean to float. Boolean can only be true or false, but a float can be negative or positive, so it's fine. We'll do that. Okay, so that's going to come through there. Now, in terms of our widget here, we're setting the input mode to UI only. Now, if we're using enhanced input system, we can't do that. We have to use a game mode in order to do this. So I'm going to keep it as game mode. I'm not going to show the mouse cursor or anything like that. But what I am going to do is change the mappings. So enhanced, hope I spelled it right. Get an enhanced input system, remove mapping, and then we're going to remove first of all the player character's movement. So we can go here, just choose the default one, take it off. Then I'm going to add a new one. So add mapping, and we're going to add on there the UI one. Okay, and when you're doing a removal, like a destruct event, just do the same, but obviously the opposite. You want to change it to the other way. So if I now go into here, oh wait, not go into here, sorry, go into the menu, and now I can put in the IA change page event, like here, and I want this just to change what is the active widget. Now, because we are doing a cycle, it has to keep track of which index we're on. So we can either keep track of that ourselves, which is usually an easier option, or just use the widget index on the widget switcher to handle this. So let's go for widget index on the widget switcher. I'll show you how to be more dynamic. So if we add more to it, it's a bit more easier to work with. So I want to get the index that we're currently on. So if I type in active index and get the active widget index there, and I want to add on to this the value from the input. So it's either going to be negative or positive based upon left or right, what I'm doing. I then want to take the widget switcher and set the active widget index to that. Now, what's important here is that we actually clamp this down though, because we don't want to go too far off the scale. So we're going to clamp this value and do clamp float. Put that in there. Now the clamp here is, oh, yeah, sorry, I want to truncate. 0 is correct. We want it to be 0. But the maximum, how do you get that? Well, you can just get the widget switcher and get the number of children it has. Get children count and take 1 away from it. Because the count is an actual number, not a 0-based number. So put that in there. And there you go. Now this is going to be dynamic. So if I add more stuff to my menu, I don't have to worry about changing code and changing numbers. It'll just do it for me. So let's show that working in here. Let's click on there first. And it should hopefully work. No, of course it doesn't. Why not? Change page. Yeah, that should work. Mapping context to UI. Should be in game mode still. Let me just make sure this is getting triggered. Yeah, it's getting triggered. So why is that value not changing there? Started, acknowledge index. Yeah, it should work. Print string. Still returning 0. Oh, that's interesting. Action value. Plug it in raw. Oh, just getting 0. Why am I getting 0? UI change page, axis 1D. Yeah. Ooh, why is that returning 0? Oh. What's happened there? Oh, it's because it started. I went and started. I went and triggered. That's why. I had this problem the other day. It wasn't triggered. Because it's already started. It hasn't started sending the value yet. So we have to do triggered. And what we have to do on change page, because we don't want to go through really fast, is on triggered here. I want this to be when it is pressed. Okay, it fires once. I remember now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now I can cycle between them. Okay, and let's say I want to change the appearance of the button that's currently highlighted. We can do that dynamically as well. So we get the. Let me just take that off now. As it was. We want to get the button that we're on. So that horizontal box we're going to make variable. Drag it out. Get child at, and the index will be the same as the widget index, like that. And now you can manipulate it however you want. So, for example, you can change like the scale of it if you like. So set render scale to, obviously if you wanted to do something a bit more fancier, then you have to do like a cast and do that stuff to it. But in this case, I'm just going to make it a bit smaller. 0.8 by 0.8. Okay, but what's more importantly is we set the current one to 111 when it leaves it. So we do this twice. So we'll collapse that to a function. We'll call it highlight button. And put that in there. And we'll make this do both. So this input here will be is highlighted. And we'll do select. And if it's true, it'd be 0.8. 0.8. If it's false, it'd be 1.1. So at the start, before we change widget index, we can do highlight button and turn it off. Then turn the next one on. We'd probably also want to do on construct, turn that on as well. Okay. So you can see now that first button is actually smaller than the other buttons. So now as I cycle through, you can see them change. Okay. And the beauty of doing it this way as well, because it's dynamic, again, I can put in other menus, other screens, and it won't affect anything. I can just keep adding more and it will still work the same. Case in point, I can go into designer here. Let's say we add another button to it. This button is going to say achievements. I spelled wrong, but whatever. And we add another screen to this one, and this one will change the color of it to blue. And done. So now, without having to change any of the code, it will still let me go to the end and back. Okay. Really handy. Yeah, not oh sorry, yeah, epilepsy warning. Sorry. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Next question then. I'm gonna scroll back up because I know I missed a few coming through here. Hope that helps you, Luke Goblin. The widget in the switcher has several buttons to choose. I did use buttons to switch the widget, yes, but you can't get the controller to switch between the buttons on the shown widget on the switcher. What? Switch the widget, yes, but you can't get the controller to switch between the buttons on the shown widget in the switcher. What? You want to try and do? So you got these buttons here. You want to change those buttons to a different set of buttons. Is that what you're trying to do? Let me know. I'm gonna try something. Next question. No. Okay, I'm lost at what you're trying to do, Luke Goblin. You want the control? I'm gonna read that thing again. You want the controller to switch between the buttons on the shown widget in the switcher. Right. Okay. I think you're talking about buttons inside each tab. Are you talking about like the icons? Are you trying to get the icons out? Yo, just ask in the chat here. In the switcher is an inventory of buttons to equip. You keep writing what you're trying to mean, Luke Goblin. I'm going to answer some other question in the meantime. Lee Hall, is there not a way for the horizontal box to somehow get the click for each of the buttons instead of having to set up the click event for each button? No. The only other way you could do it is if you put them in an array and do a for each loop and bind their click to an event. You could do it that way, I guess, but no. Furious Warg, hello Ryan. I have a simple behavior tree where the AI moves to the player and on success it goes to the next node in sequence. However, if I leave the nav mesh, the AI fails to move to node. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, AI needs a nav mesh to move to. You can't do it otherwise. How do you make a fire damage ability that expands on the floor after activation over time, like Molotov fire in Counter Strike? Yeah, sure. You got a few ways you could do this. So there's two components to this. You've got the actor component of it, which is the thing that's actually going to deal the damage. Then you've got the visual side of it, and the visual side of it we'll come to in a minute. But let's just talk about the actual fire side of it. So we'll do fire spread. And in here, we're going to have a sphere collision. And this can be a radius that's going to slowly spread out over time. So on the event graph, we're going to do begin play. Or not begin, yeah, begin play. We do timeline. Growth, we'll call it. There's a few ways you can do this. It's just one. Size. Go from there to there. We'll start off at 1. Value, size 0 and then 1. And then the second value we'll do about time of 1 and a value of 6. And then do 1 there. Okay, so that goes across to that. Okay, so on the begin play, you've got the size coming out of here, and then we want it to grow the size of the sphere. So just going to use that to change its scale. So set relative scale 3D. Just chuck it into that. There you go. So what happens is this will grow. So to show you that, I'm just going to turn it on so you can see it. So turn off hidden in game. And I'll make the line thickness a little bit bigger so you can see it a bit clearer as well. Also need to take off that UI thing. Okay, so it's growing. Okay, so and if you want to slow it down, you just change the rate of your timeline here. So growth. Oh, crap. Growth. Set play rate. So if you want it to take 10 seconds, you just put in 0.1, 0.2 if you want 5 seconds, you know, whatever it may be. Okay, there you go. So that's the thing that's actually going to deal damage to someone. So you just do a check every so often to see if there's someone in there and deal damage to them. So you got that part. The next part is the visual effect, and that depends entirely on the behavior you want your fire to have. So if you want the fire just to do like a normal circle, like grow, you could do this with a Niagara effect quite easily. So do Niagara system here, and we'll just do, I don't know, do an empty one. Yeah, do an empty one. Fire growth, we'll call it. Okay, so the fire growth here, we're just gonna do the basic thing. We'll just do static. What am I doing? Sprite render. Spawn rate, fixed issue. Oh, hang on, let me just add the other ones in here first. Initialize particle. Why won't you let me do that? Meta state. Oh, wrong one. Delete. Yeah, spawn rate. There you go. There we go. Do 5. Particle spawn. Add velocity. And fix that issue. I'm not going to explain this too much. I've gone for it a few times. I've done videos on it too. But we'll do color. Color from curve. And we'll do Oh, it's not changing. It should change. Why is it not changing? Whatever. The main thing I wanted to show you anyway is initialize particle. We do shape location. And the thing we got here is the sphere radius that you want to change. So I'm going to change this to be a ring or disk. And the ring radius here, we can make a variable to change over time. So I'm going to go to user parameter, make new, float, radius. I set it to 32 by default. And put that in there. And then we'll compare it to the scale of it as well. So we're going to multiply the float. And choose our radius there. And make another one called scale. And that'll be starting at 1. And that'll go into the bottom one there. So radius times scale. Okay, so roughly, we'll do size, sprite size, particle state. Oh, I didn't update particle state. That's why the color wasn't changing. It should work. There you go. Initialize particle. Change that down to like 3, whatever. Okay, and that's going to start off at 0, 1, and then 1, 0. Or not. Whatever. So that'll do that. Now, when you do this as well, you probably want to upgrade the spawn rate as well. So we'll update that spawn rate here by multiply by float. Start with 5 as it was, and then took the scale in as there. Okay, like that. So now, if I go to fire spread over here, I'm going to Niagara particle system, fire growth, and you can see those values over here, radius and scale. I'm going to set that over here too. So fire growth, set scale, set float, variable float, scale. Ooh, that's not how you spell it. And the in value will be the size there. There we go. So as this thing grows, it should spread out and do the fire more across the floor. Okay. Now at the moment it looks like it's doing it in a ring rather than taking hold of the whole entire floor. That's fine. You can fix that. Go shape location for ring and disk, and you'll see in there we got disk coverage. We're going to whack that up to 1, and that should be it. So now let's spread out. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Okay, if you want it to actually go up against stuff and catch certain things on fire, that's a little bit more involved, and we don't have time for that today. But yeah, there you go. Next question. If I do miss your question, by the way, do put it back in the chat because I can't obviously answer everyone, so I'm just going through what I can. Have you tried the new Mover 2.0 plugin? And if so, can you make a multiplayer version of your kart series using it or using a smooth sync plugin if you're aware of it? I haven't yet played around with it yet. I will at some point. Busy at the moment, so I haven't had a chance to. Um. Do, 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 do. Eagerness Studios. I've never done anything with replication before. How would you show actors to one player but not to another during runtime? So, if the actor belongs to the player, so it's like their player character, you can do the only owner C and only owner no C type stuff, which are flags on all actors, or all primitive components. Sorry, that you can do. You can see in there you got owner no C, only owner no C. But if you're trying to access various other things like whether or not something is visible or not, it's a little bit more involved because you have to have some sort of thing you're checking against. So why would they not show against that player? Is it because they are a different team, for example? Do they have a certain status effect? Whatever it may be. But basically, what you want to do is have, let's say we have a look. Imagine this is our actor. So BP chest, for example. But the chest is only going to show for certain people. So in here, you'll have a custom event from the server, because this will be owned by the server, to multicast out and do change visibility. And that'll be replicated with the multicast function. So what that'll do is it will now tell everyone to do this thing, okay? So the server would call this one, whenever it may be. So let's say active begin overlap or timer, whatever. It will call MC change visibility. Then everyone will get this. Then you want to get the player controller, and this will get the current player that's playing the game, like client side. So multicast has gone out, and now you're in the player seat. Your player controller is this. Get player controller, and now you can do some checks to see if you're a certain team, if you've got certain stats, whatever it may be. You go from the player controller, and anything else connected to the player controller. So maybe it's character related. In that case, you want to get the controlled pawn from here and get the player controlled pawn. There you go. For example, so whatever it may be, that'll be handled by that. Okay. Just be aware that you make sure that the thing you're changing visibility on is not replicated. So, for example, a static mesh, you have the option to do component replicates. Don't do that, because if the server made it visible, everyone will see it visible. So make sure it's turned off, and making sure that the visibility of it's being controlled by the overall actor, which is replicated. So make sure you turn that on. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. Mr. Flip, hello. How would you set up a system that unloads actors like Wild Petition? That would dynamically spawn at one time based on location. I'm not entirely certain. Something to experiment with. I'm not entirely certain how you would do that. Because most of the time, your actors that are spawned in, you spawned in temporarily. They'll be gone very quickly. So I'm not entirely certain. Let me find another question that we can answer. If Sneer Amar, if I want to attach height map to a material in displacement node, I need to make nanite to enable tessellation. Yes. Are nanite skeletal meshes destructive like static meshes are, or is it simply for LOD stuff only? I believe it's just LOD stuff only. I'm not entirely certain. I haven't played around with nanite skeletal meshes much. Ben, can you do an update on your fight director? I hear people do it with having a leading AI again. No idea what they mean by this. Yeah, so that is exactly the same as what I did with my fight director, except I made the fight director not another AI character. It's just a thing in the world that exists and it's looking after the battle. But yeah, you could totally do it with another character. The downside to that means, though, if that character is destroyed in any kind of way, so does all the direction go. But yeah, you totally could do that too. It's exactly the same as what I did. It's just a different character thing. Um, Chipolata Jones. How many active NPCs can UE5 comfortably run? Depends on the machine it's running on. Essentially, you can do quite a lot, but I mean, you'll find that it depends on so many things. Um, but you'll you'll find that you probably don't need that many. Um, if you are getting into the hundreds and hundreds of them, then you probably need to do something clever with it. Um, yeah. Um, next question from Flea Wartup. How do you change nav mesh in real time, like open door? Yeah, so you can do that. If you want your real nav mesh to change in real time, first of all, you have to tell it to allow that. So you go to your project settings, go down to nav mesh, navigation mesh, scroll down, and you'll see a thing in here called runtime generation. And you want to change that to static or dynamic modifiers only or dynamic. So dynamic means that if something moves out of the way, the nav mesh is going to regenerate live for you. If it's modifiers only, which is probably best, it's more efficient than dynamic fully, but dynamic modifiers only works quite well because what you can do is, let's say we have a door actor, and let's just put in a mesh like that. You give this the modifier. Sorry, go to cube here and nav, and we're going to do can ever affect navigation. We're going to turn that off. Okay, and no, not there. Is it here? No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so you do you turn it off from affecting navigation, and then on here you add the nav mesh modifier, and this would be whatever class you want to use. So null, default, obstacle. We got obstacle like that, and compile that. So if I put in our bounds volume, put that in there, and then put in my door. You see it's affecting the nav mesh now. It's turned it off, essentially. But because it's dynamic modifiers only, when this door moves, only the modifier will affect the underlying nav mesh. So you can make it move out the way and let things through now. So yeah, dynamic modifiers will work just fine for most cases. But if you want it complete dynamic, yeah, just change it to dynamic. Just be aware that does come with some performance cost, as you would expect. Chipolata Jones. I've always wondered if I make a huge map, do I just cover that massive map in a nav mesh boundary? I mean, essentially yes, but you'd want to use nav invokers to help with the load of it, because a large map. I can demonstrate this actually. If I go to landscape, and we'll do 1,000 by 1,000. Oh, like that. Create. So let's say we've got this large ass world, okay? And if I put a nav mesh in there, and you watch, as I make this bigger, you'll see it take time to generate the nav mesh, right? So I'd make it nice and big. You see it taking time to do that. And if obviously this is not that big of an area, but if I increase it further, okay. Now the problem this nav mesh will have is that it's a load of memory to store up. So it's be hanging around in memory, and most of the time you don't need that much nav mesh data stored in here. So if you're using nav invokers, you'll have a lot better time. And what nav invokers are, well, first of all, how you enable them. If you go to navigation mesh, you'll find in here. I'll just search for it. Invoke, and you'll see generate navigation only around navigation invokers. So if I turn that on, now you can see it's not doing the whole thing. So if I were to put in a character, like there, for example, imagine it's like an NPC, villager, or whatever. All I have to do is give them an invoker around them, and now it'll generate the navigation mesh that's relative to them. Yeah, they don't care about the navigation mesh that's way over there. They care about this one. So anything that is going to be important and have a nav mesh, you need to make sure it's got a nav invoker on it. This is a lot more efficient than having the whole thing loaded up. So if you are doing a large world, do that. Also, bear in mind, you can also use multiple nav mesh bounds volumes. You don't have to have like one large one. You can have multiple littler ones if you want. Yeah, totally up to you. Next question. Furious Warg, how to make a behavior tree so that AI moves to the player and attacks only on success. If it fails, the tree stops running. So I'm not going to go through and showcase the whole thing because that's quite a lot to do in a short amount of time. Let's take out the landscape. But I'll show you roughly the code for it. So, in your behavior tree, blah blah blah, you got a new task, blah blah blah, tell it to go to a certain position and do the attack. So if it's successful, that's when it does the attack. Now you can either do it in one task or you can separate it out. So if you are doing it in one task, it'll be something like this. Target actor be the player character reference, whatever it may be, and just put it on success, attack, whatever it may be. If you're doing it as separate tasks, on success here, you want to finish execute and tick the success box. And then for on fail, you want to untick the success box. And then on behavior tree, you'd have the attack task next to it. And that's all there is to it. So follow my AI stuff, you'll see it in there. Just need to plug in the reference to the player character here. Or the target get player character, for example. Like that. Okay. 10 minutes left. Let's see what else we can do. What happens to the tree if it fails? It depends on what you've done in the tree. So, for example, if you've done like you go to selector, then a sequence, and then it goes to, let's say, move to, and then it goes to the new one, which is attack. Imagine it's the attack one. If move to fails in the sequence, it won't do the next one. It'll just fail the whole sequence and go back up to the last node, whatever it may be. If the last node is a selector, it'll go down the next branch and do that one. If it's successful, then it'll just move on to the next task in the sequence. The sequence restarts when it's got nowhere else to go. So the difference between a sequence and a selector is how it handles fail states and success states. So a sequence, when it receives will go to the next branch if it detects a success. So if that's successful, it'll go to the next branch. Whereas a selector will only go to the next branch if it detects a fail. Okay. Is there a benefit to using C++ over Blueprints, or is it more of a preference thing? Ben, so you need to use runtime dynamic with invokers, right? No, you don't. Not with invokers. You can just have invokers like normal. Is there a benefit to using? Yeah, so C++ over Blueprints. So, there are things you can't do in Blueprints, but you can do in C++. So, for example, C++ means the whole engine is available to you. So, if you want to do absolutely anything, you can do it in C++. However, there are benefits to doing it in Blueprints. Blueprints are a lot faster to iterate with. So, when you come up with ideas and playtesting ideas and try to work out something, Blueprints are damn quicker than C++. With C++, though, you get, I say, a lot more flexibility. So, as to the benefits of using, if you are going to choose one or the other, it's not one or the other, it's both. You don't ever say, I'm just doing C++ or I'm just doing Blueprints. I mean, you could just do Blueprints, but typically it's best designed for use with both, as you are making like underlying core functions and functionality with the C++ and then using them in your Blueprints to help tie up the game. Now, in terms of when you want to switch a function from a blueprint to C++, is if you're noticing a severe performance increase if you were to change it to C++. But I will say this again until I'm blue in the face. 99% or 90% of your performance issues are not going to be related to your code. It's going to be related to your graphics. Rendering is always, well, the majority of the time, the issue for performance issues. The code is rarely the case. Code-wise, though, can it make yourself more efficient as a programmer, so it make your life a lot easier. And so that's where you're looking at more about improving the game there. But generally speaking, 90% of the time, it's going to be a rendering thing to worry about performance. So you see all these people saying like code is so blueprints are so unperformant, whatever. They're not really. They're totally fine. And you are not, and say any change you do in C++, I doubt you'll notice any difference. You're talking fractions of a millisecond of difference, if that. And if that's the case, then if you are still seeing performance issues, it's no doubt going to be a rendering issue. Blueprints. The only issue with blueprints doesn't work well with source control. Correct. Hard to tell what changes were made. Which blueprints were serialized as text instead of binary. Correct. The only way it does really work well is with Perforce. Perforce seems to do it quite well, but all the others, no. Am I using Nanite or Lumen in Mimic? I'm using neither. Mimic is using baked lighting for maximum performance. Ignis Studios. What about my code is telling the code engine to render 1200 actors in the scene every second? I mean, technically, it is telling it to render a lot of things every second. But rendering, yes, is going to your code's not telling it to render. The problem is with the rendering part, not the code part. I can put in like you can tell that with blades of grass. Blades of grass, there's more than 1200 of those, but it renders it just fine if set up correctly. Any idea how to get the AI navigation path to make a visualization? Yes, I've actually done a video on that before many years ago. I can't remember what I called it. It's like breadcrumb trail or something like that. It leaves like a it predicts where you're going to go next because you can actually get that information. So if you check out that, you should glean from that how you would get the navigation path. Lee Hall, do you ever do VR stuff, Ryan? I've never seen any tutorials on it, or is that your interest? Yep. I love my VR. The problem with doing tutorials in VR is it's annoying to record and annoying to show. It's not straightforward. We'll do it at some point. But I've done several projects with people who are doing VR projects and helped them through them. It's just a pain in the butt to sort of get going and recording fine. But it will probably happen at some point. Yes. Can you read my comment of a final exam? I don't know what a comment is. Also, if you're leaving your final exam till tomorrow, that's a bad way to go. But anyway, the widget shows that when the player levels up, the widget has 3 skills that randomly appear, and the problem is the widget appears, but I can't interact with the widget, and the skills appear twice sometimes. I mean, something like that I need to see firsthand. It's very difficult to say. Just know that if you want to interact with the widget with the mouse and keyboard, you need to be some kind of input mode to UI somehow, a bit gaming UI or just UI only. Otherwise, I can't really help you without seeing it firsthand. It depends entirely on how you built it. Lee Hall, using link cable Airlink. Most of the time I use Airlink if I'm testing it with people. It works fine for the basic stuff, and it'll only ever be basic stuff like rendering wise. I'm not going to show graphics and stuff. Should we render in-game movies in Blender or make sequence in UE5, which is better? So here's the balancing act. If you're going to do a pre-rendered movie, which is what you're talking about in Blender, a pre-rendered movie, by the way, you can also do that in Unreal, a pre-rendered one. The downside that has is that it's got to load up that video file. So if the video file is quite large, you might have to little wait before, or hiccup before it kicks in. However, if it is a real-time cutscene happening, you don't have to do that. You don't have to wait for that. You just need the initial load of the level, and it's there. So it's a lot quicker to go from cutscene to game, and game to cutscene to game. Whereas a pre-rendered video has to go from game to video back to game. Yeah, there's a wait in between those two. It's not straightforward like that. Are you gonna do any more videos in the survival series? This is something I'm in an army about, because the survival series, there's lots to do in it, but I was debating whether just to branch those things out into their separate series. So I was tempted today to start recording the cooking part of that, because that's where we're at with that, but recording that as a separate thing on its own without tagging it onto the end of a survival series, because the problem is no one watches the videos that are over X amount of videos long in the playlist. Which I know people want to see that stuff, but ultimately you've got to make sure that we're making content that people want to see, and things like that. So chances are I'm going to branch it off somehow into a separate thing, and so you can sort of see how it works, and then you can try and tack it onto it. But it's something I'm trying to work out a good way of showing it. It's the same with the FPS RPG, anything RPG related, basically, because they're large games with lots of systems, and trying to break out those systems into individual parts seems like the better way to approach that. But it does highlight some issues, because obviously if you're doing cooking, you need inventory. Inventory, you need to set up a whole series for that, which we've done, but then that needs to be reliant on that, and so it becomes an issue. So yeah, I'm working out a way we could do something which is better. Lee Hall, one thing would be good to put videos in playlists. Yes, I'm very bad at doing that. I need to be doing that. I need people to help. So basically, but yes, I need to go through and sit down and just do it at some point. Yeah, it's very difficult. Not difficult, just there's lots of spinning plates at the moment. Because we are doing things like we're doing the channel stuff. There's private lessons going on. There's live streams. There's Mimic. There's other side projects I'm working on. And then there's the business development side of it. So we're also doing things like starting investment rounding soon. So we're looking for investors soon to do some really cool stuff. So I've been talking to people about that, and lawyers and things like that. So there's a lot on the spinning plates at the moment. Trying to get through it at a good pace, but yeah, I will sit down and just do it at some point. Do 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 do. Santhosh Ratnam. Oh, we just want to know something. Is it possible to have separate post-process volume that affects only emissive parts, i.e., spotlights effects on the emissive parts? I mean, should be able to, yeah. You're trying to create a Spider-Verse style like those dot or halftone. I mean, dot and halftone stuff we did last week. You can see how we did it there. I'll probably have to do something special with that one time-wise. I don't think we have time to do it today. Will you make a tutorial about the process of releasing the game on Steam? I want to. There's one issue with it. And I'm going to read the terms and conditions very carefully. But Steam, as far as I'm aware, have an NDA about showing the back end of Steam and how to do that, which is really dumb, really annoying. So I'm going to double check the NDA. I'm going to try and contact from Steam and say like, hey, is it okay for me to show people how to actually do this using Steamworks and the Steam pipeline and things like that to actually upload a game to Steam and go through that process? I need to sit down and go through the terms and conditions because it is annoyingly NDA'd up, I think. So it's a pain in the butt. Same with Epic and all that. It's just they don't like you showing the back end for whatever reason. I mean, there's security reasons, obviously, because there's some things in there you definitely can't see. And by that I mean like there's like codes that we have to use to upload our game to, and if anyone get hold of that code, that means they can upload something instead of your game. They can upload their game to it, which you don't want ever. So there's things like that you have to protect and be careful of. I think it's iffy. That's why they don't want to do it. But at some point we'll have to do it. And maybe if it's like a slideshow, maybe, maybe something like that. Yeah. I think that's gonna have to do it for today, guys. I want to say a massive thank you to all your questions today. Sorry if I didn't get around to your questions. Hopefully you've got gleaned a few tidbits here and there. We are live again tomorrow doing our retro remake, which is going to be River City Ransom. So if you remember River City Ransom, if not, you can play it on the Switch. Actually, it's on the NES store, online store thing, emulator. But check it out. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up, sort of like if you're familiar with like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and those sort of things. It's like that, but we've got like some RPG elements in it, so like some leveling up and shops and things like that. So we're going to start work on that tomorrow. So if you want to come by tomorrow and check it out and see how we work out live in front of the audience, do feel good to do so. Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, so it's going to be, what else have we done? So we recorded lots more videos today. I've done like another 8, 9 recordings today for various things. So you got to look forward to things on the Patreon, like hopefully in the near future, like skill tree stuff, how to do skill trees, as well as like how to do a games quiz show. So we know how to do quizzes. It's pretty fun to do, like multiplayer quizzes. But yeah, lots of stuff on in the pipeline coming in there. And if you are a platinum and diamond member on Patreon, you'll be getting an email, hopefully by end of the week, with a key to Mimic, so you can download it and be part of like the alpha beta testing that we'll be streaming on the channel soon. Okay, so yeah, take a look at that. Anyway, I do notice you real time, Fat Man. Don't worry. Hello. Take care, everyone. Have a good night, and everyone stay safe and healthy. Bye bye.